Great careers are not accidents, they're journeys built through clarity and intent. In every industry, there are such journeys that reveal true leadership, sacrifice, risk, and purpose. I'm Dirk, and this is The Pitch and the Catch, where we dive into choices, changes, and the careers they create. Welcome. Welcome, Christian. As a start of The Pitch and the Catch with Christian Demers, let me introduce our guest today. So our guest has built a career at the intersection of brand, growth, and global expansion. Christian is a leader who has taken business from, some would say scrappy startups to 200 million powerhouses. Along the way, Christian has launched brands across continents even. He doubled revenues in North American companies, and he's helped turn ideas into household names. Christian's been behind the wheel of the Dollar Shave Club in Europe, and he scaled their international footprint. And he's led up Air in North America, driving the hydration trends to new heights. And before that, he held leadership roles with some of the most recognized names in the world. Among them Johnson & Johnson, to RB, Zipcar, and MOO. What sets Christian apart, in my perspective, is his ability to balance vision with execution. And we talked before, so we had a briefing before, so this is why I say all those knowledgeable things. I've seen Christian, I felt he knows to build a brand people love, and he knows how to run the numbers to keep it growing. And he moves fluently between cultures and markets. So Christian speaks both French and English, and he's worked in Europe. And from what I remember in our pre-conversation, Christian has always an eye on what's next as a good marketing people to look into the future. So welcome, a builder, strategist, and in my perspective, a true global leader, Christian Demers.
Thank you. Thank you, Dirk. Thanks for the great introduction. I'm really happy to be here.
Nice. Thank you very much. Christian, if you look back at this amazing career so far, what would you say was the single boldest decision you've made? The one that maybe even changed the trajectory of where you are today?
Great question. You know what? I think, the biggest decision is one that I did as a family. We back in 2014, my wife was given the opportunity to go global with her role. And we'd always told each other that we would love to embark on an international career, and whoever got the first opportunity, well, that would dictate where we would go and how we would do it. And it turns out it was my wife, who worked at Unilever at the time, and had an 18-year career with them. And she had the opportunity to move us to London, which meant leaving an amazing job at Zipcar at the time,
Yes.
a company I really enjoyed working for, and great leadership there, and then was learning a lot. So that move that I had to make at the time was leave my role to the unknown. And while, Zipcar was my first jump from big corporate organizations to a scale up, this path allowed me to join much younger startup companies after that and take what I learned from the large organizations and that foundation, but really to take a bold move and go to a different continent and join younger companies. And my first role there in Europe was with Moo.com. So I said,
yes,
that was clearly a defining moment in my career, is to leave the job and jump continents without really knowing where I was going to land. But honestly, I think you have to make these decisions as family decisions at times, and it was definitely the right one for me. And I think my career, my portfolio wouldn't be the same if I hadn't done that.
I didn't know this about you. That's amazing. So I kind of like this. Whoever finds something first is who we follow. No, that's an amazing concept. So when you compare the work environment between where you came from and what you found, so what would be the not better or worse in a sense, but what is different?
Another great question. I think I landed in Europe, and it was in London at the time, in a very British company.
Oh, yeah.
It was definitely a startup that was scaling. It was Moo.com. They had a great leader in Richard Morose. They had set themselves up in what they called the Silicon Milk Roundabout back in Shoreditch. And but I was very much in an environment where everything was new to me, the culture, the personalities, the way of working. So it wasn't just about learning a new role, a new job, and a new company. It really was about learning how the Brits like to work.
Yes.
And there was all kinds of small differences that you only realize afterwards. But those small cultural nuances, they take time to really realize that you're in them sometimes. Add to that the fact that we were moving our kids to Europe as
That
well, who were
too.
just 4 and
That
6 at the time.
yes.
My wife was lucky; she was moving to this global office with people from all over the world in this large multinational company that is Unilever. So for her, the office vibe wasn't that different than what it was at home. For me, I really was
You
moving into a place where it was very immersed in this brand new culture. I mean, I was lucky; it was still English speaking, obviously, a lot of similarities, very
yes.
Western still, but that's where I really caught the nuances of working for a different culture.
I and I asked the question because I could relate so much. So I grew up the first 8 years in the German industry. My accent reveals it. And Germans like to, cut everything in little pieces, have the conversations, and then everybody gets their little piece of work, and everybody contributes a little piece like building blocks, and then everybody sees the result evolving. Then we did our intercultural trainings. I worked for some time in British companies, and their approach was completely different and strange to me because they were typically meeting, and of course, I'm simplifying this on the first day, and everybody was talking over everybody. Everything was like, for a German, for a German, is like that is chaos. And then the next 15 days, I didn't see anybody working it at all. Another meeting, everybody in chaos, chaos, chaos. For me as a German. And after 30 days, like a miracle out of I didn't see it coming, a result that was actually proper. And for someone who was trained on seeing things coming, there was a huge learning curve for me not to get crazy or go crazy in those 30 days because I didn't understand their process.
No, and I felt the exact same thing when I moved to Air Up, as a German company, very
Yeah,
German in that
yes,
case. So I know exactly what you're talking about, and it's just a very different way of looking at things. So that's half the learning curve every time you move. I mean, in the UK, I found that you would start a meeting by going to get coffee, and you're chatting and so on. And whereas in North America, I was very much used to, like, you start a meeting, you get the work done, and then maybe if you have time, you'll talk about family and what's going on that weekend and
yes,
so on. In the UK, it was
yes.
very much the reverse. You talked about each other, and it took me a while to realize actually that was the start of the meeting. We weren't starting the meeting late. We
Nice.
did this.
Yeah,
That's how you
yes.
begin
Yeah, it's
in London.
different.
Yeah, exactly.
It is, and if you don't start the meeting this way, something fundamental is missing.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
Christian, you have one of your most attractive experiences you have from my perspective is what everybody wants. How do I lead the company as if it was a startup? Because companies grow and grow, they mature. And at some point in time, you've created a bureaucracy naturally. And then I talk to leaders and they're like, oh, I wish we were more operating like a startup. So from the experience you have, what could you tell, and you are in that position, but how can you take experience from startups and have mature companies behave more like Starbucks? So what are the elements that established players could learn, or maybe what they need to unlearn even?
Yeah, I think it's a big part of it is you know so much more once you've matured as a company. You know where you are today, and then if you usually what I see is that people they want to launch that extension to product line or a new product or a new idea, but they automatically put themselves where they are today. They forget that if they'd had to start that idea at the beginning, they
Yes.
wouldn't have built it all. They would have built just part of it and grown into what they've become. For me, it's really that is the to move away from the fear of starting small. And when you're big or bigger, you automatically fall into that trap of, well, it has to be at least as good as everything else that I've created today. Whereas frankly, it doesn't. You need to start small, and that goes into everything, because usually what happens is when you think bigger, you build a bigger team, you build more people around it, and most of the time you haven't even launched it yet, so you're not sure if it's going to work. And I think that's where I keep seeing the failures over and over again as people build the team, the structure, the ambition before they've actually gone out to market and haven't gotten that learning. So if you stumble or if you realize that it has to change, it's a very big ship to move already. Whereas you should be a small speedboat at that point with that one product.
Yeah. This, I like this. So the question is, once you've matured Maybe you've got yourself a reputation, a good one, so you don't want to screw with that reputation. This means that trial and error, startup mentality is probably not possible. Just think of, I mean, if you and I were building, let's say, an electric car company, we could make a couple of mistakes. But if BMW or General Motors were coming with electric cars, they can't make those same mistakes because they have
They have a standard.
yeah, they have a standard and they have a brand where the brand in
Yep.
itself has a value.
Yeah, exactly.
So
So it's
how
much
could
harder to build.
it's
It's a
much
new
harder to
idea.
build, right? So how
Yeah.
could we, and maybe because you have some of this experience, what could we bring into those companies that have something to lose, yet make them more agile? Because that's the big question everybody has.
I mean, I think it's to me, you have to compartmentalize where you build that, where you
Yes.
launch it, right? And that might mean launching it in one small country. It might mean just a smaller team that just does this thing on the side until we're ready to bring it into the brand, into the fold. Maybe you can call it something different. Maybe you call it a different brand at the beginning, until you feel that it's right for that brand or for that company. Even in the US, I think that was a big learning for me in the US is when you bring this, this European mentality and come to the US. In Europe, you would launch the Netherlands just like you would launch Germany. It's a different size, but not that different, right? But then when you want to launch that same idea into the US, people have this automatic idea that I have to launch the whole country, I have to make it big, I have to treat it like I did. But you rarely have the money to do that all in one go. But the beauty about this country is that there's 50 states, and there's nothing wrong with you just like
Yes.
carve out a state and start there and make it work on the ground. And it doesn't have to be, as big as what it would have been when you launch on the European side of things. Prove it to yourself first, because there's so many differences between cross cultures and countries that you you won't know if the product fits or not until you've actually done it. And it's very expensive, obviously, if you fail nationally.
Yes, on so many levels.
Yeah. Yes.
It's so that's my first big takeaway, go small. And you've talked about the launches, but you also said, well, you could basically also go with a small team, create a
Yes.
small organization, or maybe create a smaller brand where the stakes are not as high.
Exactly.
So go small.
Mhm. Yeah, no, it was a very big learning, frankly, a few times where you spend so much money getting something off the ground.
Yes.
And if it's not exactly the way you thought it would end up, you have to rebuild. And that costs a lot. It makes things very hard. It makes you, and almost forces you to go slowly because you work so hard to try and fix it to work the way you thought it should work, rather than following what the consumer is telling you sometimes. And had you built it in a more nimble way, you'd be able to pivot a lot faster.
Yes. And the second question comes with that because you've also seen the big companies. What would you say do the big companies need to unlearn in order to go small? Because just as a recommendation, hey, go small. If it was that easy, everybody would.
No, it's fair. Unlearn is, I mean, it's at all levels, I guess, right? A big company has a structure and a way of measuring things and a way of
Yeah.
evaluating success at all levels of the company. I think it's unlearning how you measure your own success. It really is a different lens that
Yes.
you have to put to the organization, and that might mean you measure it completely differently. And then that forces you not to compare to your current success or current organization, whatever that is, because frankly, it's a different thing. It's a different beast. And the unlearning part to me is don't treat it like everything else in your company. Don't hold it to the same KPIs or standards. It's going to be different. And just because something doesn't come in at the margin, the rest of your company does, or whatever KPI you pick it doesn't mean it's not successful. It really has to be measured against its own
Yes.
success measure.
Yes. So unlearning basically that, and that would be, you said basically learning success comes in various forms and not just the one form that you're used to.
Yeah. And
That
that's hard because if you're a
it
public
is.
company,
Yeah.
your shareholder sees you that way. Everybody sees you that way. And they think that if things look differently, then you're failing versus your own standard.
Yes.
But if you're launching something new, if you're doing something new, you have to rethink those standards.
Yes. Amazing. Christian, shifting gears, you're a marketer, if I can say
Yes.
this.
Yes.
That's what you were originally trained for, and of course, you've morphed into some more general management responsibilities. But before we go there, as a marketer, what are the key? And this is you're talking to someone who's not a marketer, so that's why I asked silly questions. What's what's the key messages for? What's the key recipe of success from a marketer's perspective, not as a candidate, but as a marketer? So if you talk to anyone, what are the three things these are the general lessons you need to respect?
Yeah. I think marketing is difficult, right? Because everybody feels that they have an affinity to it. Everybody feels that they
Yes,
understand if they like
yes,
an ad, if they like a product,
yes.
if they like a
We're all
color.
knowledgeable.
We're all very subjective, exactly. And the biggest mistake that even professional marketers make, and a lot of companies, a lot of CEOs, a lot of founders make, is that they don't put themselves in the shoes of the actual customer, the actual user, and they bring way too much subjectivity of thought into what they think is the right thing to do. And frankly, the key to success as a marketer is to understand who you're marketing to
Yes,
and cater your messages, your product, everything you do to them. It may feel weird. I could be marketing a product for a female brand. I could be marketing a product for anything. As a good marketer should be able to market to any industry. They
yes,
shouldn't have to have an affinity to it because what they need to do is understand what does that customer want. And I think honestly, to me, that's the key to success. And that's the key to a lot of mistakes is people always think they measure things with themselves in mind rather than who they're trying to target. And it's hard sometimes because you want to build that cool brand. You want to be part of that cool wave, but maybe the people that love your product are this whole different segment that are not like you. Not the same, uh, not from where you are. They might not want to do the same things you want to do. They do different things on the weekends, and so what appeals to them doesn't necessarily appeal to you, but that's okay. Your message needs to cater to that group and not to what you think is fun or good.
yes. I can see that. I had a thought in my mind. And of course, the general rule is what you said. You should be able to basically market any product to any market. You've got to listen to the customer, understand the customer. For you personally, Christian, what would be your comfort zone where you'd say, I would know exactly what to do. And where would you say, I know I should be able to market every product to every customer, but where would you say, oh, this is where I would have like a big learning curve?
A big learning curve. Gosh, a big learning curve would be maybe like something like entertainment, right? That's very different.
Yes,
I usually sell packaged goods or very tangible things.
yes.
The closest thing that wasn't tangible, I guess, was a Zipcar, where it was
Zipcar,
car
yes,
sharing.
yes.
I worked a little bit in broadcasting, so I understand a little bit, but that's a very different world to me. You're trying to sell a personality, a show, sell seats in a concert, or something that's more nebulous than a product is different. And you're now trying to get in people's minds about what they like. And again, you fall into these very subjective worlds of what will people like, what people want. And so to me, that's a lot harder than an actual product. To me, I guess I've a product is tangible.
Yes,
I
yes.
I can understand what a person might think about it. When it comes to just the arts, I guess it's much more subjective, so it's much harder to
Yeah,
sell.
yeah. So this means, I mean, I could hire you for my band because we're currently doing marketing, but you'd say probably
That'd be harder.
there are people who've done it before.
Yes, exactly.
It's nice. And I'm just picking a brand because I have three daughters. I spend my money on Sephora. Basically, they spend my
Yes,
money on
yes.
Sephora. So if you were to work for a brand like Sephora, and there's many others out there, how would you, because it's a product for females mostly. I'm just being careful,
Hmm.
but when I go walk through the
Yep,
store, it's all girls and women.
yep.
How would you be able to get closer to that customer group? So just technically, how does this work? If they put you in front of, let's say, Sephora or any of their competitors, Ulta, whatever's out there.
You pick an easy one because I have a daughter as well, a teenage daughter as well. So
Yes.
a portion of my salary goes to Sephora also for sure. But for me, it's in the data. That's another thing that maybe marketers don't do as quickly. It's there. Sephora knows who their customer is. They know who buys their product. They
Yes.
can see it as who walks into their store. They also have other data in terms of loyalty and things like that. So you need the data is usually there, and
Yes.
you walk into a new company, a new brand, not enough people spend enough time in what's already been collected. I mean,
Mm.
brands create research projects over and over and over again, whereas sometimes the answers are already there. It's just a matter of going into the archives and reading and understanding what's been there. So I guarantee you, if I was hired by Sephora tomorrow, that's what I'd want to do. I'd want to see the data. I want to see the people and understand like what's this group that tends to come in and buy so often from me. And that's the first part. After that, you have to validate that. You have to talk to people. Today's tools, in marketing especially, they can utilize big data. There's algorithms, there's Meta and Google can target you in all kinds of different ways. And I find that marketers today don't talk to their customer enough. They
Yes.
feel that we don't need to do that anymore. But that would be the next piece is talk to these consumers. You can do it very easily by just doing it in person yourself at the front door of the store, or you bring them into a room, whatever that may be. But you still need to talk to your consumers, especially when you're coming up with new ideas and new things. Talk to them. Like it's good to use that data. It's good to understand, what the big picture is. And there's so many tools, and AI is changing the world there too, and making things easier in some ways. But ultimately, I think right now you still need to validate this by talking to people because your customers are still people.
Yes. So that's a tricky question. I just thought of this. So because you mentioned your daughter and you're also a good Sephora customer, if and let's stay with Sephora. I know this is just I came up with it. There's no
Mhm.
background to it. If you were heading Sephora marketing as of tomorrow, what would you do with Sephora? Would you leave it like it is? Do you already see something where they could? I'm just curious.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's great. They're doing so well, right?
Yes, yes, they're
But
amazing. Yeah, they're doing really good.
I guess it's rare that a company does very well forever without evolving.
Yes.
So that is something I'd want to understand. And I'm not into. I don't have a lot of experience in this retail space, so there's nothing top of mind that tells me where this industry is going. But I guess what I can say from what I've learned in my last few companies who have been, very digitally native companies,
Yes.
direct to consumer, but some of them have gone into retail, or I've worked with companies that were in retail, but now they're seeing everybody shift towards Amazon or online shopping. In my mind, what I'm finding more and more is that we're heading to this place where it's no longer about one winning over the other. There's a balance happening in this retail universe where things are becoming more omni-channel. People are shopping where they want to shop, especially in the US, where you can't win if you just go into one channel, for example. And I wonder if Sephora, which is very much as a very strong, I don't know how many of their sales are online, so I'd be guessing here, but I know they have a very strong presence in physical space. I know consumers somehow appreciate walking into that store
Yes.
and seeing, the everything there at their disposal, and somehow they know what part of the store to find it. Even though for me, it's I get completely lost there. But I wonder if
Yeah.
as we evolve now, where does that go? Where does this demographic that loves them so much today?
Yes.
What happens to and actually maybe that's one of the biggest decisions is they've won so much with this demographic is do they follow them as they age and cater to them,
Yes.
or is it really about sticking to this age group that you're always going to win if you win in that space, right, in that teenage girls mostly, right, as a demographic. So that is one of the, I
That's a
guess, key
great point. Yes.
strategic decisions that
Yes.
I'd want to explore. So, and once you get that answer, and going back to my answer earlier, once you understand your consumer, right, and who's that customer going to be, is it that 14 or 12 to 18-year-old girl forever, or is it this group of people that really love me and they'll keep coming to me? And I think that's probably something they have to ask themselves if they haven't already.
And that's because you basically built the relationship with this demographic,
Yeah.
and you can't expect all the following generations have the same affinity for that product or the channel that's been built.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think that's what will give you the direction to go, is understanding who you will follow, whether it's that group that's aging, or whether it's always going to be that group of 12 to 18-year-old girls.
That's a very strategic approach.
Thank you.
No,
Wish them well. Yes.
But how is this going to pan out over time? Yeah, and over time means a generation.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
Yeah, this is
which is the next 5 to 10 years.
See, if I could make a wish, it is like I'd like to have a sofa for the parents. Well, that
there's no room.
Like
they feel every inch. There's no room. They feel every inch. You have to go sit, in the corridors of the mall, basically, where you can sit across the way. But yes.
And same goes for Brandy Melville. So
yes.
my girls love to shop at Brandy Melville, and we've just been at Scottsdale, Arizona, and there's like a bench, like a park bench in front of Brandy Melville. And actually, the parents are fighting for a space on that too. It's like, I need to sit somewhere, or maybe have a coffee shop next door, so that while they're evaluating all the amazing product, whether it's going to be Brandy or Sephora, we need to be somewhere, not just standing in front and then being called inside for the payment.
Absolutely, I like that.
I love it, Christian. Again, this is a lot of this amazing insights for me. Shifting gears again. Mm-hmm. So today, you're using your skill set at the moment in a freelance capacity. Mm-hmm. So what excites you the most about the challenge you're tackling today?
Is that I guess what excites me the most is I'm seeing a lot of the same issues that I've seen in the past. So I'm starting to gain confidence that what I've learned can be applied quickly.
Yes.
In some small companies. And I am seeing that come true, as in within 2 or 3 months, I'm able to find some low-hanging fruit mm-hmm. and see change happening rather quickly. Obviously, it can't solve full companies immediately, obviously, but there are common concerns, issues, topics that just always seem to arise. And if you put the structure in place, they can learn and do things a little differently, which usually tends to move the needle well.
What's a typical mistake? I'm pretty sure there's typical mistakes.
Mm-hmm. It's what I said earlier, right? Today in marketing, especially, you have these big tools from huge companies like Google, Meta, right? And you turn them on as a company to do your marketing. You create these ads and creative, and you put them in the machine. They're very much run, through the algorithm, because it's almost anybody could do this today. You could take an ad, put it in Meta, and let it run and say, find the right audience for me.
Yes.
Right. But if you just do that, you lose sight of, again, who you should be talking to and how you should be talking to them. If you just let those machines do all the work for you, you usually end up in a place where you get incremental growth, small growth, because the algorithm keeps improving things and making things a little bit better for you, But you find out after about a year that you've been talking to the same people over and over again with a very generic message, because you haven't done the work to understand who your consumer is and where you need to go. And so I guess that's the common mistake that I find, is that people rely a bit too much on these tools that they have in place, that they have at their disposal.
Yes.
But don't do the fundamental marketing work that needs to be done ahead of that. And I think you can be more successful by doing that first, and then putting your best foot forward with advertising against these machines. And they will tell you whether your assumptions were right or wrong at that point. And you'll probably do much better. But I think that's why Google and Meta do so well. That people just give them money because they think it's the best way to reach the audience.
Yeah, they make it easy for us.
They make it very, very, very easy. Exactly.
And it's like,
but
okay,
the work still needs to go.
And what you're basically, Here's what I just thought. You're almost sound like a traditionalist. You're like, and I mean this in the very
Yeah,
best
no, no,
way, in the very best way possible.
no, I know, and I struggle with that a bit because when I
Yeah.
start talking this way, I feel like an old marketer and traditional, and go back
Yes.
to doing it the way it used to be. But when I speak that way to the younger generation,
Yeah.
they see it as, wow, what a great new way of doing things.
It's nice. That's
Right.
nice.
And the problem is, do people come in again to the industry with these tools? But if you forget about the consumer, I mean, it's not marketing
No.
if you're not talking to
So
the consumer.
the tools are basically an enabler, what I
Yes.
understand. But it just speeds you up, but it doesn't put you in the race in the first place. That's kind of what I understand. You still have to put your running shoes on and go onto the track, and you need to be able to run before you can use the tool that speeds you up. This kind of, I don't
Yeah,
know
I
if
think
that's it.
so. And but anyone can run, and that's the problem, right? So these tools, almost anyone can do it. It's more of and it's a race. You feel that if you're not doing it, somebody else is doing it. Therefore,
It's
you
FOMO, classic FOMO.
have to be doing it. It's FOMO. Having said that, the people that end up winning often are the ones that find something different and do it in a different way. And that might be creative.
And
It might be a creative approach.
that
It might be
different,
using a different tool.
it might be different too, but when I listen to you, it might also different could be to take a step back
Mhm.
and do something very traditional, as in standing in front of the store and talking to parents or the girls going into Sephora, which
And
is,
if you do that, you'll understand them better. And I guarantee you, the creative you decide to build off of that insight will perform better.
yes,
Eventually, it will, in whatever platform you decide to throw it in. And that to me is the part that people forget very often. And you can see it in the data. Like they just, everyone's doing the exact same thing, and
yes,
you're like, but you're not growing the way you thought because they don't know who they're talking to or why. Very often.
yeah. And because maybe there's something fundamental underneath, it is we think we can do everything from a remote perspective and
Mhm.
remote position. So if I, put a webcam in there and I send surveys out, I get to some place, but it doesn't replace the conversation with the actual customer. That's a great one. Another good one. And because as you read, we're all forward oriented, and forward
Mhm.
is digital, omni-channel, and the tools and everything that's provided. But sometimes doing something traditional can give you actually a competitive advantage.
And look, I don't like it to call it traditional because I think
Yeah,
it's the
you're a
discipline, it's the
marketeer.
science.
Of course, you
No,
don't like to call it.
but no, no, but it's the science. Marketing is still a discipline, right?
It's
And
a
if you
yes,
apply the discipline, you should succeed. And the problem with marketing is that it's one of those disciplines that somehow almost anybody gets into because you can make a company succeed in many different ways.
yes,
But if as you grow, and that's usually what happens to these startups and scale ups, right? Is as you start growing, if you haven't done that discipline, if you haven't done the right things, that goes on everything. It goes to pricing, it goes to packaging, it goes to everything. It's not just the advertising and the marketing tools, right? But you'll realize at some point that you'll hit a wall, and you won't know why. And it's not until you step back and realize, oh wow, there's a very fundamental marketing component here that I haven't applied.
yes,
Sometimes it's just as simple as distribution, right? These great online companies do really, really well for a period of time, and then they realize, why am I not growing anymore? Why aren't these, tools making me bigger anymore? Well, you're only talking to 15% of the population because you stuck to one channel.
yes.
Go to Sephora, go to Walmart, go to Target, and see what happens. And that usually becomes kind of the next step in these companies. They realize, wow, people are still shopping in these places, or they didn't understand that their consumer really was there as well and wasn't going to come online to buy off their site.
Yes. So today you're enjoying your freelance capacity, and it's called fractional CMO. But when you look at, and I know that's a typical human resource question, and I apologize for it. If you look 5 years ahead, what kind of impact will you want to have created by then? Whether it's going to be fractional CMO or you join a company as a CEO. If you look into the next big leg of your journey.
It's funny because almost every company I've joined in the last 15 years, I've come in as a marketer
Yes.
in some capacity, and I end up leaving as a general manager in
Yes.
some capacity, right?
Yes.
And so I think my journey probably continues in that in that way. Is that marketing is what I love to do. It's what brings me into a company, but probably because of that early foundational work in large companies where I got to learn to run more than just marketing. As a brand manager at Johnson & Johnson and Reckitt Benckiser, you learn to manage the whole business for a brand, right? You understand the P&L. But so bringing that discipline to everything I do, people usually see that, oh, wow, this guy understands that. He can help my margins here or help my company go there. And he understands the importance of hiring the right people in the right places and understands how the full supply chain works into, that end product. So I think my journey continues to go in a place where maybe I'll be leading a company again someday, but I'm okay to to work with different companies in the meantime to see exactly where that right fit is. So I'm happy to make an impact with all kinds of companies because I know that once I find the one that's right for me, there'll be a place there for me, and we can grow the company together, and I'll probably be the right person to lead it.
Yeah. And here's what I'm thinking. The way you've positioned marketing, I don't think you're talking about marketing anymore. Because marketing in most people's minds is ads, personas, supporting campaigns, but you have a broader holistic perspective of marketing. So that's kind of maybe as a marketeer, you shouldn't be using marketing as such anymore to describe your approach.
That's fair. It's got a lot of different words out there. It's
Yes.
market orientation. It's putting the consumer at the center of the business.
Yes.
It doesn't matter what discipline in that business, but if you put the consumer at the center of it, you'll probably build a better company. And you're right. That's not just marketing. That's just keeping the consumer as a central figure in everything you do. That should apply to finance as well as operations as well as HR. And if a company can be built around that tenant, it probably becomes a better company.
Yeah. And you said we shouldn't stick to old metrics, old ways of doing, old ways of success. This also means we should look at the way how we get to success differently. And we had a marketing department, a sales department. But now when you come in, it's not just marketing. So, and basically you made a pitch for the consumer. And correct me if I'm wrong, the customer at the center of the organization, because you've
Yeah,
mentioned supply
100%. That's
chain.
it. Yeah. Yeah. No, yeah, exactly. And I think that is what I try to do when I walk into a company is by speaking to people across functions and understanding them. But yeah, if I had to build my own company from scratch or rebuild a company that I walk into, that to me is the most important thing is that everybody in that organization understands who the consumer is. And I've gone through interview processes in the past. And one of my common questions to everyone I speak to in the organization is like, who's your customer? And I swear most companies I speak to, the answer is different completely
Yes.
across the board within a company, right? They
Yes.
don't know even within their company. And it's, and to me, that fascinates me that should be something that everybody completely understands. It's not just for the marketing department. It's for everybody.
Yeah, we're all very busy in debating what the boss wants from us versus what the customer wants from us.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so we
And I've heard answers like, our customer is the early adopter. Okay, well, who is that? Like, why would they be the early adopter?
yes,
I mean, it means nothing. But no, to me, that is key to, especially growing a consumer business, right? Is if if the whole company's on board with that, and you see it, right? You see organizations become either more tech driven, right? So they try to drive it, or they become
yes.
more sales driven, or they become more marketing driven. To me, that none of those things matter. If you don't understand who the customer is, you shouldn't have any of those parts of your organization driving you. It should be that customer driving you, and that should dictate then where you put the resources in an organization to make sure that you get to win.
Excellent. So takeaway number one I have is for those mature companies out there, number one is go small and find ways to have less risk in certain endeavors. Go small, and once you realize you hit something, then you can use your economies of scale or your opportunity to
Yep.
scale. Secondly, success might look differently than you are used to, which could lead us a whole other way down in terms of what success is, how we met, and that's amazing. And number 3 is put yourselves in the shoes of the customer. And that doesn't mean, it means looking at the data, but it basically means go to the source, as literally go to the source.
Yes.
Literally means
it's a good summary.
Standing in front of a Sephora and we're, back, could be anything, could be.
No, it's a very good summary. Thank you. And thank you for taking me on that journey. I think we've come up with something that's actually very insightful.
Absolutely. Together we did the pitch and we had a catch.
Yes, exactly.
That's kind of the idea. Christian, amazing. Thanks for spending the time. I'll stay in touch because I would love to see how your journey evolves and the kind of impact you create, because I feel like you're not done yet, by far not.
I sincerely hope not. I really enjoyed the conversation. It's always great to talk to you. Thanks for the time.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you very much.